Laurence Edmondson, joined by Rob Gray, the Technical Director of Red Bull Advanced Technologies. And we have a very special guest, which is this Red Bull RB17. First of all, RB17, that name will sound familiar to a few of our viewers, I think. Can you explain the background behind that?
Yeah, sure. So, we were racing the RB16, I think it was 2020, and then COVID came along. And obviously the FIA made us carry over the chassis for a year, so we raced the RB16B. And then the following year, we jumped to the RB18 to keep the continuity between years and F1 car names, and that left the RB17 free. So when we were looking for a name for our car, we thought that was an obvious choice.
Seems very fitting, not least because of some of the kind of top trump stats on this car. So can you run us through power, weight, peak downforce?
Sure. So power, I mean, we're looking at around 1,000 horsepower from the combustion engine, and then another 200 horsepower from the energy recovery system. Downforce, our weight, we've got just under 900 kilos, so incredibly good power to weight ratio. And then downforce, I think, is somewhere around 1.5 tons. And the thing is with the downforce is we have too much of it as the speed goes up. So we have to turn back the wings off and back the diffuser off to limit the amount of downforce, because otherwise we just overload the tyres. So, we could have much more downforce, but we have to limit it where the tyres can cope.
I bet some of the drivers would love to hear that in Formula One. We've got too much downforce, we're going to have to trim some off.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it all comes back to lap time. And, at Monaco here this weekend, we're running lots of downforce on the car. Other circuits, you run far less. So it's all about what's the optimum for lap time.
Got it. So when we talk about lap times, I think the most impressive thing about this car, and the thing that people may have heard, is that it is actually capable of getting close to or maybe even matching Formula One lap times around certain circuits. Is that going to be the case?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in the virtual world, and I'm always quite cautious when I talk about this, but in the virtual world, yeah, in the simulator, we're matching F1 lap times. But as I say, that's virtually, so there's a lot of assumptions go into that modelling, and the guys won't thank me for saying that, but there are a lot of assumptions, so the proof of the pudding will be when it gets onto the track, but we certainly think we're there or thereabouts.
And when is it going to be on tracks out in the real world? Because this doesn't have everything going on underneath.
Model, The real car, well, that's in for manufacture at the moment. Lots of different parts are on different dynos and different rigs at the moment being tested. And so we're doing the same as we do with the F1 car, where we try to validate it in stages before it hits the track. So hopefully when it does hit the track, it works and it's reliable straight away. And the aim is for the first track test to be before the end of the year.
So let's take a look at some of the details of this. So I was having a little preview earlier. And what's amazing is obviously where the bodywork is, but also where some of the bodywork isn't. That you can, if you look down here, you can see through. So, I mean, as an aero concept,
talk about the negative space of the car, and yeah, it's very much freeing up the airflow around the sides of the car, so through the front and around the sides. But the biggest feature probably is if you look from the rear, the diffuser tunnels. They're absolutely enormous. I mean, you could go to the back of the car and see all the way through to the front, and it's those diffuser tunnels that's giving you the absolute maximum downforce.
Okay, I think we have to do that. I think we have to walk round. If you come over, Sammy, round to the back of the car. The other thing which I've noticed is some of the shapes, like a side pod style shape. They're shapes that are familiar to people that watch Formula One, probably.
I love the fact that you can see the F1 side pod in the side of the car. For me, that's one of my favourite features.
So here we are at the back.
So if you drop down, you can see daylight straight through the front. And so these are the tunnels that are really giving us the maximum downforce.
And the person we haven't mentioned yet, who of course who's responsible for a lot of these ideas, is Adrian Newey. Yeah. So can you tell us about how he came up with some of these ideas, what the process was like working with him to turn it into a real car?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose Adrian started thinking about it back in early 21, and certainly we've got the first drawings dated from back then. And how did he come up with it? Well, I think he's seen what he's done before with other projects, and then this is his natural progression. And to an extent, I think he was sort of maybe bored over Christmas and started sketching, and then starts thinking about what he wants the aerodynamic concept to look like, and then goes from there. But he's also been very focused on the whole packaging of the car, and so it was his idea to stagger the driver and passenger, so the passenger sat very slightly behind the driver, because that allowed us to narrow down the sort of glass house of the car, reduce the frontal area, but also actually give it much more generous space in the cockpit than some other cars have.
Because I was reading about the limiting factors, and of course, this isn't built to any regulation, so it's not like a Formula One car or a wet car where you've got regulations you have to build to. So what were the limiting factors for you guys as you were designing this?
So we had to decide what to do in terms of safety. So we did actually decide to build it to Le Mans hypercar regulations from a safety perspective, because I just felt like the responsible thing to do, and it stops us from chipping away at that safety in the pursuit of performance. So that's the safety side. And then I think probably the biggest challenge is tyres. And the tyre, how Michelin are doing a great job of developing the tyre for the car, but actually fundamentally keeping the loads within what the tyres can handle is the main challenge.
And I've heard there's something called a confidential tyre. Can you give us a bit of detail on what that involves?
Yeah, so it's no different to what they do when they have race tyres. So there'll be the standard slick tyre that you can buy, you can have on the car at home. And then there'll be the super fast tyre, the confidential tyre that you can only run if Michelin are present. They won't let you keep them, and that gives you the extra few seconds a lap.
Okay, so a few last questions. Can you talk us through what you're happiest about this car? What you think really sets it apart? 'Cause there are other track cars out there by other manufacturers, but what makes this one super special?
Well, I think number one has got to be performance. It really does feel like it is raising the bar in terms of performance. And number two, I have to say the engine, because I remember back in early 2000s when we were running V10 engines. So the first Red Bull, the Red Bull RB1, had a Cosworth V10. This is the next Red Bull to feature a Cosworth V10. I quite like the link. But basically, when you fire off the V10, you really feel it in your chest. When you fire off a V8, it hurts your ears. And when we first fired up these V6s, you could barely hear them running. I mean, they're sounding quite loud today, but I guess that's the confines of Monaco. So I love the engine. It revs to 15,000, sounds incredible. What else? I think I'm pleasantly surprised by how well we've managed to meld the styling side of it with the aero side of it. Having worked with Adrian in F1, we'd never had any concept of styling, because you just don't on the Formula 1 car. But I think the fact that we've been able to make it both aerodynamically very efficient and beautiful, but also beautiful, is a real achievement. And we've done that by having the styling guys working really closely with the aero guys. And so the aero guys design their shapes, and so we then give that to the stylists. They put their interpretation on it, and then we check that in the aero world. And you go around this iterative process to get something that both looks great and is doing the job it needs to do.
So it ticks both form and function, which for a race car or something close to a race car is very unusual. One last question I have to ask. Whenever we talk about these new super high performance cars, everyone thinks about Nürburgring lap records. There's a Porsche that currently holds the overall lap record. Is this going to be capable of getting close? Is it going to be in the same ballpark, you think?
Yeah, I think it would be very competitive. I mean, it's not something we really focus on at the moment, but there's certainly a certain driver who seems to be very interested in that.
Franz Hermann, is that his name?
The one, yeah. Seems to be very interested in that moment, so who knows?
Well, that is something to look forward to. In the meantime, congratulations on what is an absolutely stunning car, and we look forward to seeing it on track very soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.